Three, two, one. Welcome to the SaaS Pulse Show. My name is Michael Bertoni, and I'm the founder and CEO of SaaS Talent. And unbelievably excited today. We have someone on the cutting edge of AI and AI agents. Everyone's going to want to listen up because he is creating the future of AI and AI tech. So I wanted to introduce everyone to Adam Silverman. He runs AgentOps.ai, obviously amazing company name. His tagline, AI agents suck. We're fixing that. I love it. So it's awesome to have you on the show, Adam.
Oh, thanks for having me, Michael.
Yeah, so what I always love to start with, Adam, is the superhero backstory, right? So I was checking out your background. You got a really unique background, but what led you to AgentOps, right? So that journey, how did you get there? How did the idea come up? What led you there?
Sweet. So I've always been like an entrepreneurial guy. I grew up in Toronto, Canada. Always kind of was even as early as like elementary school was, running small entrepreneurial ventures. But what got me like the quick calls on to kind of how I got into AgentOps was I was working a couple jobs out of university that I felt were very like robotic jobs. So some of the stuff was like in banking and pulling financial data and making models. And I always was looking like to see if like there was a way to automate this work. And at the time, like 5+ years ago, there wasn't necessarily really good off-the-shelf solutions to automate a lot of the workflows that I was doing.
Right.
And when I left the team at Built Rewards, my co-founder Alex and I, we started building like agents. This is March 2023 that could basically automate like a lot of the boring workflows that I was doing. So upload like a 10K or 10Q and extract financial data from it and put it into Excel or into an online form. Like there's people who do this all day as part of their jobs.
Right.
And what we were trying to do at the time was just automate this process. The only issue was that we were reaching like only around like 80% efficacy with these agents. And we'd see like, random problems coming up through the entire process of trying to automate these workflows. So the agents would break, they go to a web page they've never been on before and not know how to act. They would, blow out the context limit on certain files that we'd upload. And we actually started AgentOps off as like an internal tool to debug our own agents, to actually figure out what was succeeding, what was failing. And that was kind of the breadth, like that's kind of how we got started with this. We were trying to build this internal tool that was super helpful for us. And we quickly realized like my co-founder Alex is like super in depth, integrated into the like agent hackathon and AI hackathon space in San Francisco, and quickly realized like there's a lot of people out there who are facing these same problems. And we started actually built a community of all these top agent developers. We started talking to them, making sure like we were identifying like a pain that they actually faced. And that was kind of the inception of AgentOps. Like we went from being like agent developers first to building something that we knew that could actually help basically every agent developer, both like indie hackers and then also massive enterprises that are going in on actually building out these agents.
Nice. I can tell you're crushing it, right? So it's
Trying.
awesome. So I know everybody wants to talk to you about agents and AI, but give everybody just the overview, the elevator pitch. What's the elevator pitch? Why Agent Ops? Right? What's the elevator pitch? What's the value proposition?
Well, I like to highlight something like one of the people in our Discord said that like developing an agent without AgentOps is like flying blind. And the reality is like if you're just building an agent from terminal, you just get a ton of log level data. You're like looking through like all these different LLM calls, and it's really hard to actually unpack and understand what's going on with each agent session that you run. With AgentOps, you make it super simple in 2 lines of code to get full observability end to end of everything your agent does. So you get all the network information. You can get, what data the agents have access to, what websites they visit, what data source they have access to. From a compliance perspective, we have all these audit logs that make it really, really easy for large enterprises to actually trust their agents and actually understand what they're doing out in production. And from a monitoring perspective, a lot of people out there are building these agents out. They're not tracking their LLM calls. They're not tracking the tools being used. And this is a massive trove of data that people can actually utilize to their benefit. So we like to make sure that, when you're just prototyping with agents, definitely we recommend using AgentOps because they could track everything that's working, what's not, what's succeeding, what's failing. But you also get to get all this training data. You can also use down the road to fine tune models to actually see what's succeeding, how to actually improve the cost. So if you fine tune a model, you can take down your cost like 10 times on some of these agents. But it all starts from the monitoring layer, and so that's the reason a lot of people get started using AgentOps. From debugging, it's a huge opportunity. So trying debugging an agent in terminal is an absolute nightmare. We were doing this over a year ago, and we found it very easy to basically, once you instrument your agent and actually visualize everything that's going on, it makes the debugging process a lot quicker and allows you to basically get to market a lot faster. And that's the biggest aspect of all these developers is they built these really cool prototypes, these really cool perfect path demos. But in terms of building really robust agents that can work on multiple use cases in multiple industries, and work on maybe uncertain types of problems that they haven't necessarily seen before, having a solution like AgentOps makes that a lot easier to actually get into production.
Nice. So tell the audience about this market, right? So how long, first of all, how long have AI agents been being created? I know over the last probably few years, very short time, it's exploded, right? So what's this market look like right now? Or like, are you inventing the market, or has the market been there for a while, but tools just sucked, right? Like, what does that look like?
It's interesting. So I think about 2 years ago, a lot of people started building these agents, but they weren't anywhere near enterprise grade. Like they were not reliable enough. Even like the agents we were building like initially, like they worked, but they weren't like, a massive Fortune 500 company couldn't go trust us in the same way they trust their most loyal employees.
Right.
What we're seeing now is like a lot of companies are like going very vertical specific. So they're saying, here's one specific workflow. We are going to become incredibly good at building out this workflow. So whether that's like cold emailing or doing research or sales, like data enrichment, and they're coming out there building these amazing niche products around this. We're also seeing some horizontal players come out and build like platforms, this kind of like agent builder type platforms where anybody with no coding experience can actually go build these complex automations.
Mhm.
And you also have these like automations or like these frameworks, like AutoGen from Microsoft and Crew AI, which we integrate directly with, that allow developers to actually go build agents without having to go build all their like own orchestration layer. So you are seeing this market mature. You're starting to see a lot of companies do big pilots basically with agents. They're trying to see like where these things succeed, where they fail, where they can use them today in their workflows. But I think the big thing we're starting to realize is like there are more and more production grade agents coming to market. A lot of them are supported by AgentOps. A lot of them are, from my perspective, very niche in terms of the skills that they can do. So instead of going and trying to create like AGI and trying to build these agents that can do these crazy end-to-end workflows, what we're seeing the most successful companies who have like really broken down these really small processes, have tested these processes extremely well, making sure that, hey, we can get like high 90+% reliability in all these little processes. And once you chain them together, you get these complex end-to-end workflows that are, mimic the traditional like RPA industry for a fraction of the cost in terms of setting them up.
Nice. So what I'm curious about too, what's the ICP, right? So who are you targeting, right? You mentioned banks, you mentioned financial institutions, Fortune 1000, like so who do you think right now is your ICP or your ideal client profile? What does that look like?
We love dealing with like heads of innovation, CIOs, CTOs who are on the cutting edge, who like want to implement this technology, who are looking for ways to kind of implement agents. We also like working with like the lowest level developer, like your junior developer at a company who has a ton of great ideas and they want to start testing out the latest and greatest technology. So really, like we are an engineering focused product. We do have a portion of our product that is more like leaning towards like compliance teams who need to actually understand what these agents are doing out there. But really, we are like an engineering first from day zero product. Like engineers seek the most benefits from us. And we really like working with organizations who are forward thinking, who maybe have an innovation team internally, who are building out these agents, who are testing them, who are really willing to like test the cutting edge technology. And that's kind of where we're seeing the most pull initially. And it's funny, like oftentimes like the deals we work on start with like one, I won't call it rogue engineer, but like one engineer testing out AgentOps on like a side project and be like, hey, this is super helpful. Like maybe this is a great way for us to like, go and actually use it internally. And a lot of our sales motions really come from like inbound leads where it's like, hey, we were using your product. It was great. Maybe we tried it at a hackathon, or we tried to like build something with like Crew AI or AutoGen or our own like kind of agent framework. We tried to basically understand what was going on, and there's nothing that provided this level of clarity in terms of the development process. And that's usually the best place that we like to jump in and really like start working with engineering teams and make them realize that this is the new wave in terms of how like software will get developed and how many applications will be developed internally. And trying to be a leader, like if you're a Fortune 1000 company, how do you now make sure that you are the most innovative company possible? And that really comes down to just testing this stuff, seeing where it works reliably internally, and then figuring out where the external use cases are additionally.
Nice. I mean, I'm super curious about all this. I mean, we could probably go on for hours, but your go-to-market and your pricing, right? So a lead comes in, right? You identify it's a pretty nice sized company. It's an engineer that you find a use case, you get in the door, right? It's what's your general go-to-market? Like, are you doing a demo and then you're providing like how are you pricing this? So it's like I'm curious, like how do you go to market? Like, what's your overall GTM, right? And then like how are you pricing this? And I'm sure you're figuring it out. You're like, oh yeah, we're figuring it out, right?
I love it. You're getting into all the good stuff. So from our perspective, my co-founder Alex Friedman and I'll share his information for after. But we do a ton of like I'd say like upper funnel type work. So we are like pushing out content almost every day related to the agent space. Trying to be like thought leaders as much as possible. I like to like I'm very transparent. Like I like to give away like 99.9% of the stuff I know for free. Like here's like the best value. Like I like to provide as much value as possible. And really just tell people, hey, this is what works, this is what doesn't. Don't waste your time here. Use this solution. We know it works well. So that's like a lot of the work we do is just kind of educating people on the agent space overall. In terms of our go-to-market, it's really like people start using our product, and I actually have like a few like automations that'll do like data enrichment. So let's just say I don't want to say any particular names, but let's just say like massive bank or consulting firm signs
Yeah.
up for our product. We'll do like data enrichment to make sure like, hey, do they have like an AI team? Do we know like who's their CIO, who's their CTO? And this type of stuff's super helpful. So we are leveraging these agents and these like AI tools to make sure that like we're going after the right ICP. And sometimes it's like very like not innovative teams, but if they're testing our product, it's like a very good sign for us. What we'll do then is typically like I'll reach out to them. Pretty standard process. It's me. Like if anybody's listening and like you get a message, I promise it's me actually writing it, not an agent. But that's like one aspect where we actually go and reach out to them. We talk to them. We oftentimes even talk to these engineers. Like if it's just like a low level engineer trying it out, it's like, why'd you use this? How'd you find us? I'm always trying to get all these data points. We maintain like a pretty comprehensive CRM of kind of all these data points, so we understand everything end to end. And the sales cycle is pretty simple. So a lot of our customers are on our pro plan, which is $40 a month. It's very straightforward. You can like get buy-in from your management quite quickly. Hopefully, just put on your company credit card, and like that's easy to get going. But for larger companies, you have a lot more like compliance and like kind of risk aspects. Some companies want like on-prem deployments, or they want us to self-host, or they want to like self-host the agent, or sorry, agent ops, or they need like certain permissioning for certain users, or they have certain compliance requirements. Or SLAs or SSO requirements. Like these are all things we start charging for on the enterprise side. That is still like a contact us. Like we haven't done like an a la carte process yet. We're thinking about it. So if anybody like has a SaaS solution for productizing like massive enterprise sales, I'm all ears. Like reach out to me. I'd love to chat. But it's still manual process. We're like a traditional invoicing, traditional like yearly type pricing. And these are a lot bigger engagements. Usually we're holding their hands a lot more throughout the whole process. We also have a division where we actually build agents for companies. So a lot of companies are coming to us saying, hey, we don't have the resources internally to build this out. And I'll give them 99.9% of information for free. But sometimes they still want that last 0.1% to actually go and build it. And so we select like a very few amount of companies every quarter. Usually these are like massive organizations to actually help them build out their own agents. So that's not like that publicly available on our site, but it's usually like we're in discussions with a big
Pro
company.
services. Yeah, you're built. I mean, like any company, you do pro services. If you have a right deal, you'll do it.
Yeah, it like has to definitely be the right deal. I think we say no to a lot of these to be very upfront, but for the right company and the right use case that we know we can do reliably, we're always happy to take it on or recommend like a partner who can do it exceptionally well. Yeah, from our perspective, we're like agent agnostic. So it doesn't matter what framework we're using, whether it's like Llama Index or Crew AI or AutoGen or any of these, like we integrate with all of them. From an LLM perspective, we're LLM agnostic, so you can use any LLM with AgentOps. We are, country like really like we're trying to make sure that this is the easiest platform for people to use. Anyone who's listening, like I love blunt feedback. Come to me, like roast me, tell me like our product sucks, tell me it like doesn't work. Like I'm very like okay with it. Like even roast us publicly on our Discord. Like I'm totally open to it. And the reality is just like these data points really help us make sure we're building the best product possible. And I think a lot of founders might be scared of this. Like it's like they're scared to be in the hot seat, scared to have their their baby almost like roasted in front of them. But from my perspective, it's very important to kind of understand like where the pain points are, how customers like us, how they're using our product, and where they see the biggest opportunity for growth. Like a lot of our next couple of months are just focused on building out features that like users are requesting, saying, hey, this would be like a game changer in terms of using our product.
Yeah, I mean, what I see in the market that you could really probably help define over time, and I think I saw you're like have a marketing background, right? So it's really helpful, right? So it's like defining like what is this? Like, I mean, like people are like, what are you even doing? Like, so having some type of like framework or some type of functionality framework or something. So you could quickly explain to somebody, this is what we are. Right. And I'm still learning, like I'm learning, like, so do you have anything like that? Was kind of my next question. Cause I mean, cause you're a marketing guy. I was thinking like, do you have like a 5-layer framework of everything you do? Like, can you review that or can you talk about that?
Yeah, so we maintain a database that I'll share with you after of like all the basically best agents in the space that we've tested. So this is
Hmm.
usually like a good place to start trying stuff out.
Yeah.
We like oftentimes we're getting like a lot of like our inbound directly from like the documentation. So it's like usually engineers reaching out from this perspective. But we are doing like a lot of stuff around like demos and live coding sessions and showing people actually how to build out these agents.
Hmm.
We're also doing a lot of work with like no code tools. So if anybody's like interested in chatting, like basically at me on Twitter, say like, hey, or LinkedIn, say like, hey, I'm looking to automate this process. I will try and help you to the best of my ability. And this is like a lot of stuff that we're really focused on over the next couple of months. I think it's really important, like as we're in such a kind of new market, showing people the possibilities of like what you can even do with these
Yeah.
agents.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of stuff coming out that I'm really excited to kind of share surrounding like concrete use cases, workbooks people can get started with, examples people can just copy and start running. So these types of things I think are going to be massive. But yeah, I think from my perspective, it's just the the most important piece right now that we like to think about is that like we are serving developers. So right now, like we're doing the best like experience possible for developers, and this will start working into okay, less technical folks like still seeking benefits from agent ops or compliance teams seeking benefits from agent ops, and this sort of stuff like we're continuing to lean in on.
There you go. You're back. Can you hear
Awesome.
me okay?
Yeah, loud and clear.
All right, good. I don't know what happened there, but let's. It was the AI. No, it wasn't. So yeah, we had a short glitch there, but we're back. So in terms of challenges, right? So you've been at this. It says on your LinkedIn you've been at this a year, but I'm sure you've been at it more than a year. What have been your biggest challenges that you've had to overcome, and how are you dealing with them?
We are in like a new space inherently. Like when you're signed to like large enterprises, these are like super long sales cycles, and with like new technology, the way I kind of look at it is that big companies don't want to take risks. Like it's just like anybody listening to this who's like selling SaaS to large enterprises realize this. So with new tech, what happens is that like there's so many pieces of sign off between like having a champion being like, I want this, like we need this at our bank or at our insurance company or whatever, and getting to like the final paper in terms of closing. So we've been like, I think it's a challenge inherently by like being in a new industry, having new technology. Now somebody has to like, I don't want to say like bet their career, but you have to like make like systematic bets. And so what we're seeing is like a lot of these large companies, they have so many like almost check boxes of like, okay, well, we have the champion who signed off, but now like the CFO has to sign off, and then the compliance team has to sign off, then the regulatory team has to sign off, and the legal team. And they're just trying to make sure there's all these check boxes in between them, like making a decision. Because a lot of these deals could be 10+ year engagements is the reality. So
Right.
it's like they want to make sure that like if they're choosing a tech stack, that A, we're going to be around for the next decade, and B, that there is, from their perspective, they're not going to get fired, like, for whatever reason, because they made the wrong decision. And that's just like the
Totally.
reality of selling through to
Yeah.
enterprise. I'm always like, I have like actually like a small group of like founders who basically are doing like large enterprise sales. So anybody's listening, like reach out. I'm happy to kind of add you to it. And I really like, I think any data points here are always great. Like the amount I've learned from just like random people going through the trenches and like screwing up deals and succeeding on deals. Like we all are kind of sharing like data points, and I like to be pretty public in terms of a lot of this stuff too. But my perspective is like it when you're in a new space and you have like these they're kind of like legacy players trying to compete with you. You got to figure out like how to make the yes as easy as possible. So it's
Right.
like, can you go on prem? Yes. Can you do, can you have, all these random compliance requirements? Yes, we can do that. Can you, permission certain users? Yes, we can do that. Like the second you can basically make it so that, like their whole checklist of of asks is a yes, it allows you to like speed
Yeah.
up the process a lot quicker.
Yeah, totally. I mean, you're really defining the market. I mean, it's really exciting. So in terms of people, talent, recruiting. How do you look at that right now? Where's your company with that right now? What type of team do you have, and how do you think about people and talent?
All right, so maybe I'll share a story. Like, I don't think I've ever publicly shared this story. It was kind of like a little hack for us, but I'll jump in and we'll see kind of what the team thinks later. The way we kind of found our first two engineering hires is we hosted this like house in Mexico, and this is something that will not scale. Like, I don't think, but it worked really well for us.
It's
Okay,
what in Mexico?
we hosted a house in Mexico for 2 weeks.
I love
Okay,
it.
and we brought 6 engineers there. And we basically said that you have to make 4 hours of open source contributions to our project and per day, and we'll pay for accommodations, we'll pay for your food and everything.
Love it.
And
I
out of
love it.
that, we had out of the 6 engineers, we had two that really, really stood out for us. That were like, going the extra mile. They, 4 hours, was done. They were just kept on working on it. They were really passionate about what we were building. We'd be at dinner. They'd have like new ideas in terms of, hey, I want to integrate this to the product. And we actually made those two hires from that trip. So it's a very like unconventional, like totally
That's
like I
great.
don't think it's gonna scale. But it's one thing that really worked well for us, and I don't know if it will work well for other companies. So we're actually thinking about doing like Retreat 2.0, maybe two. I don't know. I'll throw it out here first.
You
Taiwan.
rented a house. Wait a second. Let's talk about, because I do business in
Yeah.
Latin America, right? So I have my team in Colombia, in Medellin, but I have resources in Mexico. So you rented a house in Mexico. You invited the engineering community. Hey, come on in. I think it's a great idea. I mean, it sounds very the Facebooky, like remember when he brought all those people in, he's like coding along. Like, I think it's great.
It was great, and it was like I don't know how we're gonna make it scale like to the next kind of next big wave of hiring, but I
I'll
will
help.
say,
I'll
okay,
help.
like I'm all ears. But I'll say the big thing for us is like it was like there's a lot of checks there other than just being a great engineer. Sorry, it was like, okay, like the team dynamic was right, the feeling was right. You could spend extended periods of time, like when you're working with somebody every day. Like, I know a lot of people do like, okay, come into the office for 3 days and we'll do like a test to see how it's like working with a team. But eat, sleeping, whatever together, like in the same house, it's really like it builds camaraderie very quickly. So that's like kind of our very like unhinged, like, different take on, hiring. But we're going to try and do it again in Taiwan. So if anybody's listening as an engineer and wants to come to Taiwan in October, I guess it's the first publicly release that we'll be talking about it. But yeah, it's gonna be
So
great.
Adam, I got an idea for you. So I mean, so I'm the same type of way. I freely give everybody everything. Like I give ideas out for free. Just partner with meetups, right? So so again, we could help you do this in Latin America. So like if you want to do this in Latin America, we're already doing it. So we partner with meetups. Basically, imagine a meetup you find a meetup, an AI meetup or a backend meetup or a whatever meetup, and you do it right through the meetup. And
Yeah.
then it's unbelievably scalable, right? And if you do it in Taiwan, basically you find like what's the biggest AI meetup in Taiwan, and then just like get in there.
Yeah. So we're super interested in this stuff. And like, I think a lot of people we know, they're having trouble like hiring like 10x engineers and hiring people who like good culture fit and all this stuff. And like, you can find really good people, but finding exceptional people is the hardest part. And I think the difference between exceptional and great, or like very good, is like their commitment. And I think like doing like these types of like, at the end of the day, they didn't have to commit more than 4 hours a day. Like, we made it like super clear and like open source contributions. But like the people who are like really committed and like really want to keep on working on this, like that
Yeah.
energy is contagious. And like we loved it. But yeah, that's kind of like our unconventional. I think a lot of people who are reaching out to me like cold, like I'm always happy to chat with people who are like interested in like looking for jobs. And I'm always like, I think even like my LinkedIn, like Twitter's is like hiring, like we're always looking for like 10x people. I will say the one thing for people applying for jobs is make sure like you've used the product before like reaching out. So when people reach out to me and they're like, hey, I used AgentOps for this, it worked incredibly well, these are like 10 things I would change, that's the person I want to talk to like instantly. I'm like, oh my God, this person like gets our product, they tested it, they know this works. All these types of data points are so helpful. Opposed to the person who's like, hey, I'm a senior, backend engineer, and I've worked on blah blah blah, and like it's like all like amazing resume, amazing presentation. But it's like the first question I've had is like, have you built an agent using AgentOps? And if that question comes back as no, then it's like, so how much do you really know about our company? How much, like, are you actually interested, or is this like I'm trying to differentiate? Is this like a mass message you've sent out to 80 founders trying to like source a job, or is this something that's like very dialed in specific directly to us? So that's like one
Yeah.
thing I really recommend people thinking about.
Yeah. So let me give you one word that we use, right? So because all of our clients are SaaS startups and tech startups, right? So this is the one thing, proactive. So are they consistently proactive? Like meaning, are they always doing one thing more? Are they always like, so it's like consistent proactiveness, being proactive, being proactive, being proactive, just consistently always being proactive with stories. So that's what we're looking like, because people in startups, they need people who are committed and always in. So they're proactive to do more, proactive to do more, proactive to do more, always doing more. But no, I love your unconventionalness. I love it. It's awesome. So it's been a great podcast. Let me ask you a last question. So, two or three biggest piece of advice, right? So, people listening to this most of the time are solopreneurs, small tech people, people that are thinking, I want to start a company, right? So, that's the audience that's listening to this a lot. So, two to three biggest piece of advice that you would give those early people.
Cool. So I share these like on other podcasts too. So sorry if it's repetitive for anybody who's like listened to other things I've been on. But first is like, don't be afraid to fail. Like part of entrepreneurship is like failing. Like our first product, like it worked, but did it work incredibly well? No. Like it was like, we Agent Ops came from like really realizing like our product kind of sucked at the end of the day. There were aspects I was great on, but there were aspects that need improving. And I have this one acronym, I've been saying it for years, but like FAIL is like an acronym for first attempt in learning. And really just try stuff out. Don't go into debt. Like I'm not going to tell you like go do something crazy and unhinged and like put your house up, taking a second mortgage on your house to build your startup. Like unless you think it's going to be absolutely insane, but try these like small bets. Try like building an MVP and seeing like if people actually like it. And you'd be surprised how far you can get with like a couple grand. And I know like so some people might be a lot, I really recommend like that's a really good point to like make a financial commitment to yourself. Try something and and also don't be afraid to throw in the towel if it doesn't work. And that's the thing. Like I've seen a lot of founders who just go on for the same startup for like 3, 4, 5 years, and it's not really going anywhere. And you got to know like when when you should kind of say, okay, I've had enough of this. So that's one piece of advice. So just get started. Yeah, who is it? I think it says Nike says like just do it. And like
Right.
just like if you have an idea, just go out and just do it. Second piece of advice I have is, and I've said this quite a few times as well, so I'm sorry if I'm a broken record, but go through your workday and figure out what parts of your job can be automated. I think a lot of people, they just, expect like, okay, I've been doing the same process the same way for 20 years. This is exactly how it should be. And I'm going to start calling it like the notebook method, but literally just take a notebook, keep it on your desk. Every time you do a boring process, just write it down or keep like a running Word doc of like, hey, I did this thing. I think I could automate this. And then go out there and like tag me, tag other people, start asking questions like, hey, can this be automated? Go on Reddit, go on, what's it called? Hacker News or some of these or Quora or wherever. And just start asking these questions like, can I automate this workflow? If it's something that's very sensitive to your company, anonymize everything. Don't, make a new profile, make a new account. Like, don't put yourself at risk, but start thinking through like where these automations can actually start benefiting you long term. I think it's such an easy win for people to get started. So that's like those are kind of two pieces of advice I would recommend. So if you're like even inside a company and you're like want to be entrepreneurial, like don't want to like go take the full route of being an entrepreneur, but you want to figure out how to be innovative within a company. Just think about like, wow, we've done this process the same way for 10 years. Is there a way like with the latest and greatest technology? It doesn't need to be AI, doesn't need to be anything, so that I can go and automate some of these processes that we do. And those are the types of people I think long term, like over the next 5, 10 years can progress the fastest in their career because they're like leaning in, they're willing to really take like, educated risks. They're willing to really put themselves on the table saying, hey, I think this is a broken process. This is something I think we should automate. And that's really where I would kind of lean in as much as possible.
Yeah, so I've got some really good intros for you, man. We got to talk. So one guy, so I hear Canadian in your voice like all over the
Yep.
place, right? So I got a trivia question for you. Who is one of the like pretty much the most famous Canadian person in SaaS? Who is that? Do you know that would be?
Like maybe the folks over at Shopify or I'm trying to think some other like pretty big SaaS companies. There's a few like SaaS companies that have done like roll-ups in Canada there, so I've seen those before. But I'd love to hear who you think of this.
Yeah, so you must have heard of Dan Martell.
I have, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so Dan Martell wrote a book that I highly recommend you. It's called Buy Back Your Time.
Huh?
Literally, it is a handbook on how to buy back your time in terms of he buys back time with an EA. So you should reach out to him and say, not only should you buy back your time with an EA, but you should buy back your time with AI agents. So like, and he's one of the biggest guys in Canada. Like, I think, where are you? Did you say you're in Toronto?
Originally from Toronto, yeah.
I'll introduce him to you if you don't know him. I'll introduce him to you. And I have an unbelievable lead for you, but I can't give it to you yet because I'm helping somebody get a job. And so we got to talk. We got to follow up and talk more. So
Love it.
let's shut the podcast on. Let's debrief for like 5 minutes. I'll tell you more about this. But it was awesome having you on the show, and I'm looking forward to following your career.
Thanks, Michael. One last thing I'll say is like Dan Martell's idea of like hiring a VA. Like I have a VA, it's incredible. It's like helped me so much. But the second you supercharge your VA with agents, it's like a different level. So we've seen like immense amounts of like productivity. Like, and we're very fortunate to test out like a lot of cutting edge agent stuff that's maybe not public. And it's funny that like my VA is like, can I please send these tools to all my friends? I'm like, these things aren't available yet. But really, like, you know, there is such a massive opportunity to like empower everyone on your team through these tools. You'd be amazed. You can literally save like people on your team like 20, 30, 40% of their time just if they lean into the technology in the right way.
Yeah, no, I want to learn more. So we do VAs. Like, so I have an EA service for SaaS companies. That's one of the things I do. And my guys use AI, but I'm sure they could use it better. So awesome having you on the
Love
show.
it.
Let's
Thank you so
debrief
much.
for like 5 minutes.